without further ado, please help me welcome Andrew Peterson.
I have almost cried about 7 times since I got here already. I'm kind of a crybaby, but I just keep seeing all these characters and all these wonderful kids' faces, and I'm overwhelmed. So I'm warning you in advance that if I get a lump in my throat, it's going to be uncomfortable. So just cry with me, and we'll all feel weird together. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you to Parnassus. These guys are great. This is it still like the only independent bookstore in Nashville, pretty much? The premier independent bookstore for new books in Nashville. And I remember when they opened the store, we were all so excited about it. It's great what they're doing here. Their kind of collection of books is impressive. So thanks for letting us come and invade your store. I'm overwhelmed. So here's the plan for the program is that I'm going to just kind of talk a little bit about the story and where the story came from, and then I want to introduce a special guest that came all the way from Ohio to be here, my friend Mr. Joe Sutphin, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the drawings that he did for the illustrations that he did for the book, and then we're going to do I'm going to do a reading. I'm going to read a chapter of the new book, and then do some Q&A. And then at the end of the Q&A, then my daughter Sky and I and my friend Bethany, we're going to play for you a song called "My Love Has Gone Across the Sea," which was in the first or in the third book in The Monster in the Hollow. So that's kind of the plan. So we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm going to get into it. This book is the most satisfying, creative project I think I've ever been a part of. Part of it is because it took so long to make. It ended up being, is it 520 pages or 19 pages or something like that? Way longer than I thought it was going to be. It was the most frightening thing about writing this book was the end of Lost, the show Lost. I don't know how many of you guys watched Lost, but the end of the show made me want to put a hammer through my television because I was in there, I was watching the show, my wife and I, our friends, we would get together and we would watch it. They had all these giant questions, and then the last episode they basically just said, oh, well, it was kind of a dream and we didn't really answer any questions. But isn't this sad and happy? And so what I was afraid of is that it's really easy when you're writing a series early on, like in the first few books, to kind of bring up questions or bring up creepy characters and kind of think, oh, well, I've got time to worry about that later. I've got 4 books to write. At the time, I thought I was going to write 5. Originally, this was going to be a 5-book series. But then some of the things that I thought were going to happen in book 3, which I'm just going to assume that most of you guys have read the books. Artham and Kalmar's transformations, I thought were going to be book 3. And then when I was writing North or Be Eaten, about halfway through the book, the story kept asking me to have that happen sooner. And I think as a writer, you have to be kind of willing to abandon your own outline, abandon what you think the story should be, and let the story kind of become what it wants to become. And so then the book kind of scrunched into 4 instead of 5. And so there I was about 2 years ago. We published The Monster in the Hollows. We had put in the back kind of wishful thinking, coming in the spring of 2013, I think, The Monster in the Hollows, 2012. I'm so sorry. So we had thought, I was on track and I was in a solid writing mode, and I thought, I can knock this out. And then I had last year was the busiest touring year of my whole life, and just on the road, I did 5 tours, and then I got started on the book last summer sometime, and my computer died, and I lost about my first 20,000 words or so of the story. And so I just had all these hiccups that kept happening until finally I just had to push through and do the thing. So parts of this book were written here in Nashville. Large sections of the book were written at the Starbucks down on Nolensville Road and Concord Road. I know those people. They let me refill my coffee 5 times a morning. And they're good people. And so I wrote a lot of it there. And then my family and I did a tour in Europe. So big chunks of this book were written in Sweden, and there's a cliff in a little town called Castle Rock, Northern Ireland, and there's a little rock where you can sit and look at the ocean on one side and a train going through a tunnel right in front of you. And I sat there and wrote large sections of the book. In fact, there's a poem in here about Castle Rock that you will come upon. And then there's also on the map, I don't know if you guys have seen the map or not, they'll be for sale in the Rabbit Room soon. But there's a place in Anera called Castle Rock as my little homage to this little place in Northern Ireland. And so then came home and finished the book up with not just the pressure of having to finish a book, but the pressure of the fact that a lot of Kickstarter supporters had entrusted me with their money. And it was really intimidating because it was like, no, it's a done deal now. This isn't like putting just the ad in the back of Monster in the Hollows. Now people have actually helped pay for the printing of the book, and so we've got to get busy and do this thing. So I just want to say really quickly, thank you to my brother Pete. He's here. Pete, are you here? Will you raise your hand? That guy right there is my brother Pete. Pete and I grew up in this little town in Florida mostly, and he and I were the only people that we knew really who liked the same books and liked the same movies. And so I trust his opinion when it comes to the way stories work. And so I've bounced so many ideas off of him, and he helped shape the book. So thank you, Pete. And then also thanks to all the how many of you guys here were Kickstarter supporters? Raise your hands if you were. Wow, thank you so much for doing that. And that means that you guys have you read the book? Raise your hand if you have finished the book, the new book. Okay, so I'm going to tell everybody how it ends really quick. Let me read the last page. Just kidding. So the story, I could talk forever, but I feel like I'm just going to turn it over to my buddy Joe and let him talk about the illustrations. And then after that, then I can answer your questions because I don't want to tell you a bunch of stuff you don't want to know, okay?